Hello, and welcome back to our Mass Communication studio here at Yuba College for their interview by the Prospector. My name is Zachary, Editor-in-Chief of the Prospector, here today to sit down with our Vice President of Student Services, Dalexh Hunt. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Good to be here with you, our second president at Yuba College, Zachary. It's good to be here and have this conversation.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get right into it.
Okay.
So this is now your second semester here at Yuba College, but I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your academic and career history and especially how you came to Yuba College.
Well, my history, I probably started out like a number of community college students. Wasn't necessarily sure where I want to do or what I want to be academically, but I knew I wanted to achieve something, right? So I wandered on my community college back in South Florida, Broward Community College, and I was in high school. I was kind of quiet. I didn't say much, but I was always okay. I was a decent student. Worked full time. I was a first generation college student. Faculty, I was first one to graduate high school in my family. So it was just kind of, college wasn't even on the radar. But I wandered onto a community college campus, and I just found my voice, and that's where I remained. Completed my associates, liberal arts studies, and then I transferred over to Florida Atlantic University when I earned my bachelor's in history and ethnic studies. Then moved up to Mississippi, where I had my master's in higher education, student affairs, at University of Mississippi. They call it Ole Miss. And so I did that back to back right away. But I started working right in higher education. One of my first jobs was working at Miami-Dade Community College, where I was an academic advisor, retention specialist, worked in career services, and then I was director of student life and activities. So I used to work very closely with student government, per se. And then eventually I moved off to Penn State University, one of the smaller campuses where I ran the Learning Center. Then back to Florida, where I worked at Palm Beach State College, and I was their assistant dean of students. Then moved to Pennsylvania, back again, where I was an associate dean of academics, and then a dean of students. Then finally came to California about 4 years ago, and as the dean of academic support services at Solana Community College, and then now here as vice president of student services at Yuba.
Gotcha. So what led to the decision of coming to Yuba specifically?
Well, I mentioned Miami-Dade, and Miami-Dade has many campuses, but they had one particular campus which was in a pretty rural area. And the community that developed, getting to know the community, knowing how important that was, the connections. We had a number of migrant farmers who worked in that community as well. So just the culture of where that was and how it felt, Yuba felt more at home to me in that. Now, I've been to Yuba maybe a couple times before COVID, and so at least I was familiar. So when I interviewed for the job, it was weird. You go through an interview, but you never had to step foot on campus, right? And so I've interviewed for a number of jobs over the years, so this would be the first time I would go through a whole interview process, actually offer the job and position, and never get a tour, and never have unnecessarily met with the students either. So, so a lot of what I'm learning is now.
Gotcha. Okay. So what exactly goes into being vice president of student services here at Yuba College, and what would you say is your biggest challenge in that role?
Well, I always envision a vice president as someone who helps with the vision, right?
Okay.
And help meeting with the constituencies, the student government, the faculty, the staff, and developing a vision and working that out. And so that's how I always envisioned the position, being that I worked at several other institutions. And so working here, that's very much the case, but I think really just the culture at Yuba is you get more hands-on. And you get to really get into the grind of developing initiatives and working out the details. So that is one thing that I've learned. Gotcha. And so that what goes into it, supervising, working, supporting the faculty, supporting the staff, supporting administration, making sure they get the resources that they need so they can do good work. It's really what it's about. And of course, always putting students first.
Got it, roger that. So now after having been here for a whole semester, coming into about halfway into your second semester, now that you've had some time to experience the institution, what Yuba is and how things are run, what would you say, in your opinion, is this institution's greatest strength and greatest area for improvement?
Well, the greatest strength is its people. You have staff, you have students who are just committed, and faculty, of course. I mean, they're just really committed to this institution. There is something called Yuba Proud. And I really feel it when I speak to the students, and I really feel it when I speak with other constituencies. So with that kind of strength and with that kind of commitment and folks who are really embedded and working in the community, when things open up, this space is going to really come alive again. So that's its greatest strength. Right now, the greatest weakness, there's a part of coming into during this period of COVID where that's an unfair assessment of mine, because there's so much that I'm not able to see. There's so much I'm not able to experience because of the fact that we're operating in a COVID world. So we don't have the students and we don't have others walking around to kind of help me with that perspective. So sometimes I'm making assumptions, and then I learn, oh, we do have that in place. I'm not sure how to answer that question yet.
Okay, gotcha. Well, hopefully we can get you back in the future and
I'm
ask those
sure
questions
I'll have
once
some
again.
answers then. Yeah,
Gotcha.
about that.
Okay, so from what you've been able to observe so far here at Yuba, what would you like to see improve in the next couple semesters, or what advancements would you like this institution to make in the next few semesters and in the long term over the next few years?
I hate to go back right to COVID. We're 5 years, maybe 6 years down the road where we thought we would be.
Okay.
So how we support students in person is also, we have to rise up to equitably how we support them remotely. So when you think about student services and students getting the help that they need when they walk through Building 100B or at other areas of the college, I want to make sure that those students, especially students who choose to stay remote, especially students who can't make it in, as they may not have had the opportunity even prior to COVID, that when they call student services, when they Zoom student services, or if they choose to come in person because they're walking from one class and have 15 minutes or so to stop in to kind of get the help that they need, all that feels the same. And so, I think it takes vision. I think it takes real thought and contributions from other members of the community to kind of make sure that happens, because ultimately we want to make sure the students get what they need. We want to make sure that they're served. They want to make sure that this environment, they feel that the customer service is there, that we're not just looking at transactional relationships. We're looking at how we can help students transform their lives. And one good way to do that is to make sure if they have a question, that is answered. Is to make sure that they have a phone call, someone is picking up the line. Is to make sure that if they are wanting to connect with someone, to say, well, I can't make it into those appointments because I have childcare, I have other things going on, I have to take my kids to activities, I just got off this job, but I would love to Zoom in for that counseling appointment. I want to see how we can make that happen, and not just in a COVID world, but in a world where we just operate like that after COVID.
Well, it's good to hear. I'd love to see those improvements made to be more equitable across all the students that we have in our district.
Yeah.
So that's all the questions I have for today, but let me ask you just one more. Is there anything else that you'd like the students of Yuba College to know as the Vice President of Student Services?
I'm trying to see which camera I need to look at. I'm going to look in this camera. All right. Listen, students, come fall 2021, and some of you will be in greater numbers returning back to campus. I want you to know that you have a vice president that really believes in students first. You have a department in student services that believes in students first. You have the faculty, you have the staff, you have administration overall that really believes in students first. And so if there's anything that I want you to really get, that there's authenticity in the way we care about our students and where we care about our community. And that Yuba really does care and want to make sure that you are able to achieve exactly what you need. And so if I'm a voice in that, I hope you'll come, stop by, we get to know each other, and you'll see more activities, you'll see more events that are in person, but also remote, because we want to make sure we're always speaking to both populations, those who are able to make it to campus and those who aren't. So look out for me, look out for others, especially when we come to fall 2021.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today. Appreciate it. Hopefully have you back sometime soon.
Well, I appreciate it, Press.
All right. Well, that's it for the Prospector today. Until next time, farewell.